took him and his friend, he was being zapped. Okay, that was pain. And then when he woke up or on that slab, on that table, whatever it was, and this creature was putting her hand, or it was a woman-type creature he described as, female, putting her hand down his throat and trying to come out his nose. Could you imagine the pain? And he said he was screaming, and then she stopped. It tells me that, they don't care about us. They don't care about our pain. If you did that and kidnapped somebody down the street and did any of these things that people are claiming that are happening to them, you'd be in prison to the day you die.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, these things, it sounds at best like a science experiment. It sounds at best like how we would treat animals that we don't consider to be self-aware, frankly. And then, like I'll interview abductees, and, most of them, like I said, have had these terrifying experiences. And if the entities are saying anything to them at all, it's usually something to try to calm them down while they're doing something terrifying to them. And, I don't think that comes from a place of compassion necessarily.
No.
They're still doing that awful thing, but they must understand humanity. At least some of them must understand humanity well enough to know how to go through the motions of comforting someone so they can still try to get what they want, whatever that thing is.
And that's scary. And then you have to live with it the rest of your life. Again, the same way as somebody runs into a Mothman or a Bigfoot or some other cryptic creature, right? It's something that, you only see in the movies, right? But then it happens to you. And then it makes you wonder about life in general. Everything you learned when you went from grade school to high school, or if you're lucky enough to go through college and get a degree, it just throws it all out the window. It really does.
Yeah, like I think I mentioned before, this is paradigm-shattering stuff for most people, and sort of the realization. Well, like I said before about how difficult it can be just for people to talk about it. There are a few different things going on when it comes to that difficulty. The first one I think that most people think of is sort of the fear of being laughed at, because often when I speak to witnesses, they haven't even told their friends or family, or if they did, they told one of them once, because the immediate reaction was just that they were laughed at, and so they never wanted to talk to them about it again. And then, beyond that, you have the fear of being like punishment almost, so like people don't want to talk about it because, they're afraid that their friends and family, will laugh at them. But then beyond that, I'll get witnesses describing to me how they're afraid to even talk about it because of some fear of reprisal. Like it'll bring the entity back, and the entity, like this entity is going to be pissed because they talked about it, Or I'm going to jump in. I'm going to say this. I have had people on that claim that they were abducted, by aliens from young kids' age all the way up to, their 50s, 60s, 70s. One thing they're terrified about, not so much, again, about maybe being abducted again. They're more worried about, well, not the men in black, but the government. They are so terrified. I hear it from a lot of them. They're scared, even to come on my show sometimes. Or if I get them talking a little bit too much, I'll get a text message while I'm interviewing them, and they're starting to get scared of maybe they got this thing in their mind. If they go too deep into it,
now the government is going to be watching them. And they're terrified about that, let alone being terrified about aliens abducting them. So now they got the fear of the government and then the aliens, and they have to go to bed at night and worry about that. Now, I had this one guest on my show that, and he sent me some pictures. It was really interesting. He was also on Coast to Coast and a couple other shows. Now, he was on mine first. And we were talking about this one place in Texas that was a farm, but he started watching it and realized, well, they have a transmission tower. It says property of U.S. government on this farm. Then he started seeing all of a sudden guys, all of a sudden like coming out of the barn in military uniform. Okay. And he would sit there for hours, and then it got more in depth. All of a sudden during our 3-minute break, he'd go out and, I guess, light a cigarette up off his back door. And he claimed there was a black helicopter above his house. He sent me a picture, okay, of this helicopter, okay, just hovering over his house. So then he got really terrified. Now, when he was on Coast to Coast with Nori being interviewed, all of a sudden, while he's on a show, I'm getting these pictures again of a helicopter, a different black helicopter, by the way, because I still have the pictures. It was hovering over his house when he was talking about the same subject. And I do think between all this stuff that goes on, the fear that these people must have, but they feel like they have to tell people about it for some reason. And then they do. Now they're inviting I don't know what else into their life.
Yeah, I mean it's really unfortunate, and it's part of why we do what we do as an organization, and it's definitely why I approach witnesses the way I do as an investigator. There's not a whole hell of a lot I can do sometimes, to help people, but I can at least listen, and I can listen to them without judgment. And from there, whatever I can do for them, I definitely will. But yeah, I mean, you're absolutely right, because this is such a powerless situation for so many people. I mean, how do you stop something that is so much more advanced than you, that it literally treats you like a lab, a lab animal. I don't know. It's a terrifying situation for most of these people to be in, and they are very brave for talking about it, as far as I'm concerned. Insofar as, like we've talked about already, the fear of reprisal, the fear of rejection, ridicule, all of that, but also because of, and I think I touched on this earlier, because of how real it makes it once you've talked about it, like you can live with a sighting for years after it's happened, and it can just kind of live in the back of your mind, and you're like, well, did it happen? Didn't it happen? If I just don't think about it and I don't talk about it, then, maybe it's not as real. But, when people sit down and open up to me about it, I think a lot of the time, not every time, but a lot of the time, that's when it really becomes real to them. And then that's when they really, that can open, I think, sort of new levels of trauma, maybe, that they hadn't processed yet.
I agree with that 100%, because it brings out the nightmare, because then once they open up about it, I think people block things out. Seriously. Mm-hmm. You think about the soldier, it goes out and is in a firefight and kills a whole bunch of the enemy. They go back, right, and they block that out. But they can't block it out forever. One day they're going to go to bed, and all of a sudden they remember things. And and then, it's really hard when it happens. And it does happen. So if it happens to them, it's the same thing if you have an encounter with a Mothman or with a Bigfoot or you were abducted or whatever. I mean, things are going on out there, and I think we're maybe not this year or maybe not next year, but I think something is going to come out and happen where maybe we might get more information, or maybe the government, is trying to spoon feed us now a little bit because they can't hide it anymore. It's past that now. And then, as you can be in the government and lie your head off, and the only people that believe it is yourself, the one who's doing all the lying. I think the government has lied to us so much about, certain things out there, and, like UFOs mainly and aliens, that it's hard for them to come out now and all of a sudden say, hey, we've been lying to you for the last 50, 60 years. People are being abducted. Yeah, and most of the time they're being returned, but sometimes we don't know what happened to them. Or, it isn't just cattle mutilation. It maybe is human mutilation, too. I mean, it's a lot of things we got to keep our minds open. So, I just wanted to put my 2 cents in. I mean, you can read all these books. I got a couple 100 books here, and most of them are basically all the same, be it on cryptics or if it's on UFOs or aliens. It's just kind of, if I told you a story right now, and you wrote a book from what I told you, then somebody else reads your book, and then, oh, hey, I'm really into UFOs, and all of a sudden they start writing a book, and all of a sudden some of the stuff that was in your book is now in their book, and it just continues on and on and on. Hey, our time is almost up. I want you to plug your website, your Facebook group, and what you actually do, and how they can get a hold of you if they have a cryptic story they want to talk about, like Mothman or Lizard Man or Dog Man, or maybe they were abducted. How can they get a hold of you?
Sure. So the easiest way is to just go to our website directly. You can Google the Singular Fortean Society or just go directly to singularfortean.com. You can reach out to us through our contact page or email us directly at info@singularfortean.com. You can find us on Facebook, Twitter, Tumblr, Instagram, every social media site that exists. We're on YouTube. And that's all very easy. Just, use the search field, type the Singular Fortean Society. Even if you can only remember most of the name, if you type any part of it, it's a pretty unique name, so you will find us. But we're on everything. And if you're interested in what we're doing and you want to share your story, or if you want help with, an active situation, you want us to help investigate something, we're always happy to do that. Please do not be afraid to reach out to us, because we will try to help you as much as possible. Obviously it doesn't cost anything or anything like that, because, why would it? Don't be afraid. We'll do everything we can to help you out and listen without judgment. And if anybody is interested in joining the Singular Fortean Society, like you really like what we do and you want to be a part of it and see more of the behind the scenes stuff and just interact with us more and interact with other members more, you can actually join the Singular Fortean Society by signing up through Patreon as well. So
great. Well, hey, Tobias, like always, I just want to say thank you for coming on Night Dreams Talk Radio After Dark. What I like about you, you're fresh. You come up with, open, you're not, how can I say it? You're not already decided on things. You have an open mind, and that reflects with the stories you tell. Anyway, I want you to have a great weekend, and we'll try to get you back on here in the first part of July if you want.
Yeah, absolutely. It's always a pleasure, Gary. I really do enjoy coming on the show, and I hope to talk to you again soon.
Okay, sir. You have a great weekend.
All right, you too. Take care.
You take care. Yeah, and don't forget, next Friday, We got a great guest on between 7 and 9.